Hello and welcome back to the PFF podcast. Sam Monson here, and with Super Bowl 51 looming on Sunday, I'll be back with Mike Renner later in the week to preview the big game. But first, take a listen to PFF owner Cris Collinsworth and his son, SiriusXM and Notre Dame football on NBC's Jac Collinsworth, run through their take on how the New England Patriots match up with the Atlanta Falcons. Hope you enjoy.
Well, all right, Dad. Seems like a good time to get rolling here. You had your week off. We've celebrated a great 58th birthday of yours. You stepped in Louis' dog poo, and it seems like we should get back to talking some football. What do you think?
You don't have to declare my age right off the bat, but all right, go ahead.
So we'll start your broad as we talk about Super Bowl 51 here. What are some of the key storylines in your head as we approach February 5th?
Well, you start with these two quarterbacks. In my opinion, they were 1-2 in the league this year as far as quality of player. Aaron Rodgers, talent-wise, may be the best of all of them. But as far as pure production this year, I think the two guys playing in the Super Bowl were 1-2, and maybe no surprise that they're the ones that finally ended up there. Ultimately, it's going to be an offensive show. I mean, this is a game should see a lot of scoring. Obviously, great conditions for the game in Houston. And they match up so well. One of the things that I think it comes down to is the play of the Atlanta defense. Statistically, if you looked at the numbers, the one that doesn't look like a Super Bowl team is Atlanta on the defensive side. Everything else is sort of what you would expect. Yet, because of the fact that Atlanta has played so many rookies this season, that as you see where they are now compared to when I called their game last, when they were against Tampa on a Thursday night game in the middle of the season, it's a different looking defense. And statistically, the Pro Football Focus numbers, everything shows Deion Jones, Devondre Campbell, the two outstanding young inside linebackers that can fly. They both can recover, they can run. They wanted to upgrade the speed on this defense. And on the back end, Keanu Neal, their number one pick, and perhaps the biggest surprise of this defense has been the play of Brian Poole, who was an undrafted free agent, came out, and Brian Poole now has given them that third cornerback that they desperately needed. They lose Desmond Trufant, who was their best corner. And so in a game like this against the Julian Edelmans of the world, that third cornerback, that Brian Poole position, is going to be key. The other one is Jalen Collins, who's come out of nowhere, suspended the first 4 games, but a very athletic defense that's sort of grown into itself.
Every defensive player and coach is going to have their hands full in this one, as we have two of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And I know that this was one of your toughest MVP votes, and the two guys that we have, Matt Ryan and Tom Brady, were two of your finalists.
Yeah, and I don't think you could have gone wrong with either one, but Tom Brady basically had the best season of anybody we've ever recorded at the quarterback position in the 10 years that Pro Football Focus has been in existence. So I just think that he was nearly perfect. You know, when you go back 28 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and the fact that he didn't play in the first 4 games, I think that's the debate in my mind. You know, Tom Brady's numbers were nearly perfect. Matt Ryan played all 16 and was as good as they come. Aaron Rodgers had flashes and, of course, the streak at the end of the season to take his team into the playoffs and should have been considered for that reason alone. But at the end of the day, I thought Tom Brady's season was as close to perfect as we've seen. Little chip on his shoulder. We all know that's going to be part of the storyline this week, right? He didn't like the fact that he was suspended the first 4 games, and he's out for revenge and all those sorts of things. And so all that's going to come into play here.
So Matt Ryan, then Tom Brady was 1. Was Matt Ryan 2? Aaron Rodgers pretty good too.
Yeah, I don't know if I had to go 1, 2, 3. I'm not sure who 2 and 3 would have been. But I debated in my own mind. I seriously considered all 3 of them and just settled on the best season as far as the pure numbers. And, you know, sometimes I think that we take for granted what the Patriots do, and just the fact they win so easily, and you know they're going to be in the playoffs, you know they're going to be in the Super Bowl, and so you just don't recognize the day-to-day greatness of that team.
Yeah, when I watch Atlanta play, it makes me think a little bit of our hometown Cincinnati Bengals. Because you have to think about
part of that. I can't wait to hear where this
goes.
Just
on the offensive side of the ball, and I'm not talking about this year so much as I was a year ago when you had A.J. Green, the clear, obvious number one as Julio Jones is in Atlanta, and then Mohamed Sanu is that two guy who's very capable across the board, the two great running backs, weapons at the tight end position. It just seems like Matt Ryan has so many options to spread the ball around.
I think that's right. And it's going to be really interesting to see how the Patriots play them defensively. What I think is going to happen is that you're going to see their best cornerback not on Julio Jones. I think you'll see Malcolm Butler probably play against Mohamed Sanu, their number two, who had a really good game last game against Green Bay. And what I think will happen on the other side of that will be that Logan Ryan, who's really their number two cornerback, is going to end up in coverage on Julio Jones, and they'll move Devin McCourty, the free safety, and maybe their best player on this defense, over the top. So it'll be 2-on-1 there. They'll put their best against Sanu. So then the game really comes down to Belichick's going to take away your best, right? So all these lesser names are going to decide the Super Bowl. It's the way it typically is. Taylor Gabriel is a guy that they felt like that a year ago for Atlanta, Julio Jones would always get double teamed. And then they didn't have the speed on the other side to scare a defense. They didn't have that guy that would keep you from double teaming and shifting everybody to Julio Jones. Well, now they do. Taylor Gabriel runs like a 4.28. I mean, this guy is as fast as like some of these Olympic guys out there. So now you want to take a chance. You want to take away Sanu. You want to take away Julio Jones. Now Taylor Gabriel has that speed. Now you also have Tevin Coleman coming out of the backfield. Tevin Coleman is a guy that, all that NGS data and next-gen stats and all that has been clocked at 22 miles per hour in pads with the ball in his hands. Wow. So, and I remember him coming out of Indiana, and this was a guy when they played Ohio State, he broke about at least 2 runs where he was pulling away from Ohio State's defensive backs. Now think how fast those kids are at Ohio State. So it is going to be the speed matchup of Taylor Gabriel and Tevin Coleman coming out of the backfield, and a little bit of Levine Toilolo, who's not really, but I think Austin Hooper, another rookie, could have a really significant role in the matchup there going against Patrick Chung, who will get him one-on-one. So it's a funny game for me because I can almost tell you what the matchups are going into it. And it's just a matter, do I think that, that Mohamed Sanu can beat Malcolm Butler? Probably not so much. Do I think Taylor Gabriel could have some moments against Eric Rowe? That one could be, but he's a young guy, and how's he going to handle the pressure? And you end up putting so much pressure on people that aren't used to being the star players to make star plays in the Super Bowl with all that added pressure. You think Julio Jones is going to handle it. You think Mohamed Sanu is going to handle it. But will those younger guys be able to handle it in this big moment?
So how about Malcolm Butler? And ever since that Super Bowl interception, it just seems like his game has taken such a substantial step up. Where have you seen his game go to that next level?
Well, the great thing about the Patriots system is that if you prove it, you play. And from the beginning of the next year, the opening game, they had Antonio Brown against them. And Antonio Brown kind of had his way a little bit. But I remember going to Belichick and going, "You really like this guy, don't you?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I go, "You're not putting this kid on Antonio Brown and leaving him alone." It was almost like he didn't even care. He just wanted to see what it was. He wanted to see what this Malcolm Butler and coming off of this superstar year and all that stuff, how he was going to respond. So once they have that shutdown guy, once they have him, you'd think that they're always going to be on that number one receiver. But in reality, most of the time, they're not. Matt Patricia, their defensive coordinator, really believes in giving help on the number one with his number two corner playing number one corner on number two. And I expect that to be the matchup.
So Jamie Collins, back to this move earlier in the year, he went to bed 7-1 and woke up 0-8.
Yeah.
Bill Belichick has shown that he is fearless with moves like this. And it reminds me a little bit of Nick Saban, who was willing to, in the week of the national championship, fire his offensive coordinator, Lane Kiffin, and go to Sarkisian, and it cost him. Will New England's lack of a pass rusher, at least a big name pass rusher, play a factor?
A little bit. And Jamie Collins was a good pass rusher. And when he and Dante Hightower at the inside linebacker position got the opportunity, they were good. They were coming after him, and I remember talking to Bill about the Jamie Collins deal. I think we had the next game after it. And I said, what are you doing? I go, you have a chance to win your 5th Super Bowl as a head coach, something that nobody has ever done. I wouldn't trade my water boy if I thought he was going to help me win a 5th Super Bowl. I mean, you're talking about going into legendary status if he wins this one. It's almost hard to imagine that a guy can be that much looking into the future with history staring him into the face of what could be if he won it this year. And you've got to believe, forget what may happen in the future, what his contract may be, all that kind of stuff. Jamie Collins would have helped them win the Super Bowl this year.
No doubt.
And he still made the deal. It's probably why they've been as good as they have for as long as they have, because they're always playing for the future.
Is that an ego checking part of him? Is that the agent's not going to come in and try to tell me how to put my roster together? Is it just, I'm going to figure out a way to find somebody who's going to go win regardless? I don't need an $18 million guy.
Hey, just do what I ask you to do. That's what it is. Do what I ask you to do. And once you hit a certain threshold of the money,
right,
he's not going to pay it. And he's going to have a lot of guys. I mean, when you look at this defensive line, they play across the board. Nobody of their pass rushers, Trey Flowers, Jabal Sheard, Chris Long, Rob Ninkovich, I mean, they don't have, 800 snaps because they're rotating all those guys in there. His belief is we're going to keep them fresh. Nobody's going to end up with 18 sacks on this team because they're not going to play that much. They're going to rotate in there and be, whatever you do best. If you're a run stopper, Malcolm Brown, Alan Branch, those guys are going to be in on first and second down, stop and run. Then they're going to be out of the game. Mm-hmm. Then you're going to bring in Chris Long and Jabal Sheard, and you're going to bring in those guys. So he never asks these guys to do something they don't do well. So whatever it is you do well, you're going to specialize on doing that with the Patriots.
Let's flip it over then and start talking about somebody who has had success against Tom Brady in this New England offense in the past, and Dan Quinn, who is the former Seattle defensive coordinator, who effectively almost kind of had New England in that 2014 Super Bowl. What did he do that worked?
He added speed. He added speed on the offensive side. We talked about Taylor Gabriel and what they did there. But what he really did was he sort of, he drafted to make this defense like Seattle. So he drafted speed at linebacker, Deion Jones, Devondre Campbell. And when I saw them, they were good. They didn't know what they're doing. Now you watch the tape, and these guys are capable of playing man coverage because they're so fast. And so when you're talking about guys like Dion Lewis and James White coming out of the backfield, when you're talking about Danny Amendola and Julian Edelman as guys that you've got to cover inside on all those quick little change of pace routes, they have a chance to do that. I won't say they will do that, but they have a chance to do that. Keanu Neal is that Cam Chancellor sitting in the middle of the field. Hammers, he jacks people up. And a lot of people say, what are they doing? Why did they draft him? They thought he was overrated. He got his Cam Chancellor because he knew that was the formula. They got, I don't want to say they got lucky because they signed him, but Brian Poole really was the difference maker. And then Jalen Collins, a tremendous athlete, a guy that they thought, is he ever going to be anything? And then Desmond Trufant, their best, got hurt. And Jalen Collins has been tremendous since he's come in the lineup about halfway through the season. Keanu Neal has been terrific. Brian Poole has been very, very good. So, and then I think you have to go back a year ago. What did they do? They got Grady Jarrett, a very fast inside defensive pass rusher, not a powerful guy, but very quick. Vic Beasley led the league in sacks this season, off the edge.
How about my boy Dwight Freeney, though? I mean, I grew up watching Dwight. I can't believe he's even still playing football.
Well, and that's probably the most important thing that happened to Vic Beasley, because Dwight Freeney would walk up and down the hallways of the Falcons complex with his iPad studying the guy he was going to play against. And Vic Beasley's going, what is he doing? Oh, okay, let me give him my iPad. I'm going to walk up and down the halls. I'm going to study my guy. And all of a sudden he went from, I don't know what he had last year, 6 or 7 sacks or something like that, to 16. And when you make that kind of jump, that means that not only are you gifted athletically, which we all knew coming into the draft, but now intellectually, he's starting to learn the tricks of the trade. And nobody, I mean, you just got to know how sharp a guy that Dwight Freeney is. I mean, he is just one of those guys that, you know, you think you're talking to a congressman or something when you're talking to him. He's just a really smart guy. And the tricks of the trade, it's no stunning moment for me that Arizona went down without him and the Atlanta Falcons went up with him.
And somebody who is going to have their hands full is the formerly retired offensive coordinator of the New England Patriots, Dante. Help me out with the name. Scarnecchia, there you go. Who retired, then returned. Why is he back, and what has he brought that was different a year ago?
Yeah, as the offensive line coach, it was a year ago, it just wasn't good. And he has a way of, I don't know, putting the pieces together. This offensive line, I think every single one of them played over 1,000 snaps. So they were able to stay healthy and stay intact and work together. And you think you're watching like a dance choreography when he's coaching them. It's like they're working on, all right, 1-2 step, up there, you come in and go up to the next level. And by the end of the year, this was a very, very good team. And to have both tackles healthy for the most part this year. Now, Sebastian Vollmer had been a really good player at the right tackle position, but Marcus Cannon, who's really stepped up his game this year at the right tackle. Nate Solder finally stayed healthy for a year, and he's their best over there on that left side. You know, so this is, and Tom Brady's going to get the ball out of his hand. You know, so it's not like you got to hold the ball forever. And then you have different styles in the backfield. You have LeGarrette Blount, who's the jackhammer, weighs 250 pounds. You have the lightning quickness of Dion Lewis. You have the receiving ability of a James White, which I think we have to appreciate what they've done this year without Gronkowski. I mean, I think most people would say, who's their best player other than Brady? It's Rob Gronkowski. He hasn't even been there. Martellus Bennett's limping around on a bad ankle or a bad knee or something, got hurt in the game again the other day. So, you know, they're not full go. Michael Floyd didn't even dress. Got a former number 1 draft pick.
Is that a healthy scratch? I'll tell you something to keep your eye on the other side of the ball, though, is Matt Ryan twisted that knee.
Yeah, he did.
And you can tell when somebody reaches down and he didn't. I'm not going to say that he looked like he was really limping heavily the rest of the game, but you could tell that it was at least on his mind in some way, shape, or form. Does that play a factor at all?
Well, he finished the game, and he is a quarterback, so he doesn't have to be an athlete. I don't mean to be completely insulting, but
that's a Super Bowl, though. We got 2 weeks to go through everything.
And if you remember in this past game, he had some key runs in that game. Now, 2 weeks is a long time. You know, for football players, you get a lot healthier in 2 weeks. The weather's warm again. You start to feel a little bit good. You know, one of the bizarre things to think about that I would have never even thought about until I played in one of these games as a rookie. We came out of the Freeze Bowl game, and it was 59 below wind chill. We go to Pontiac, Michigan, and play in the dome. 72 degrees felt like 172 degrees. I mean, we're all sweating like pigs. We're huffing and puffing. Like, I've never been so tired in my life in practice leading up to it. Now, you did get used to it by the end of the week, but that cold weather teams coming back to 72 degrees, I mean, it's quite a jump.
So Super Bowl 51 from Houston, the New England Patriots against the Atlanta Falcons. Are you ready to make a pick yet?
You know, I would be surprised if the Falcons won. Not because they don't have as good a talent, but because they haven't been there. And they have a lot of rookies in really key spots. You know, I've been surprised before. I don't think the Patriots are incredibly healthy. I mean, the Gronkowski thing's going to hurt them. Chris Hogan has kind of picked it up. Martellus Bennett. I think they're going to spread them out You know, you lose your number one cornerback in Desmond Trufant. They're going to check out. You know, they're going to try and get down to cornerbacks 4 and 5 and see if they can play too. So what are you trying to do? You're trying to, if they feel like they have better receivers in mass than Falcons have cornerbacks, which I'm going to think they do believe that, they could go 5 wide the whole game, you know, and Brady just go, boom, catch it, throw it, boom, catch it, throw it, get it out of his hands. But I really think the key players are going to be 3 rookies. I think it'll be the coverage ability of Deion Jones, Devondre Campbell, and Brian Poole, the 2 linebackers and the nickelback, Brian Poole, and Jalen Collins to some extent. And they're going to play one-on-one. This is going to be like, you know, going out in the side yard, and we got an all-time quarterback. I'll be the all-time quarterback because I'm too old to run anymore. And you playing against one of your buddies, and that's going to be 5 of those matchups across the board. And they're going to see if they can hold up. And then if they do make some plays, they'll come in with 2 tight ends and a fullback. James Devlin's done a nice job at fullback coming back this year. And then they're going to go power football. And then you're going to load up with an extra defensive lineman. Then they're going to have a fullback and 2 tight ends. And then they're going to go spread formation out of that. And then they're going to see if one of your outside linebackers can go cover, you know, a tight end or a fullback out there. So they're going to just poke and prod and until they find whatever you're screwing up. And then they're going to do that all day. They're just going to hammer you. You know, they're just going to take the first quarter. You'll see 100 formations. You'll see them try and line up and 100 different things. And whatever you're crappy doing, you're going to see it all day. So, you know, they'll figure it out.
Well, Dad, this was fun, man. I'm glad I can make it home for your 28th birthday, and I'm even happier we can sit here and talk football for a little bit. So until next time, the Cris Collinsworth Podcast, Episode 1, there you go.
I hope they could tell the difference in our voices.
I doubt it.